Welcome to Aspen Leading Edge. I'm Patty Roberts from St. Mary's University School of Law. Today's guest is Monica Llorente. She is a senior lecturer at the Northwestern Pritzker School of Law and author of the third edition of Drafting Contracts, How and Why Lawyers Do What They Do with Aspen Publishing. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you, Patty. I'm so excited to be here today. This is wonderful. I'm so looking forward to talking to you more about contracts and so many other things. I already told you how much I love contracts and negotiations.
Yes, you did. And that puts you in like a minority, I think, nationally. But
I know, right? I know, but I've both worked on transactional matters and I've litigated, but for some reason, I truly believe in the process of negotiations and contracts and love talking all about contracts for a few reasons. I mean, when you think about it, and I tell students this, by the way, like I tell students this, and I don't know, I feel really fortunate because students, it's a class that people like being in. First of all, I mean, a contract's all about describing a relationship in writing. To me, that's all it is, right? How is this relationship going to work? And if we look ahead, what could go right and what could go wrong? Let's plan for that. To me, that's what a contract is all about. So think about that. I tell the students, this is fantastic. You're taking the time to be intentional about the relationship between different parties. You know, sometimes you're even involved, right? And you're planning for the best type of relationship you can have. And this is essential to create the best outcomes, right? And especially us as lawyers. That is, I'd like to think that's our goal, right? To create the best. So that, and to me, you know, it doesn't matter what you end up doing. So that's one thing, right? Like the whole idea of relationship. The second issue is that it's critical to everything we do as lawyers. You have to know about contracts. You have to be able to read contracts, understand them, ask follow-up questions, really get down deep to what's being said there. The foundation of a lot of the work we do, whether it's a business deal, a settlement agreement, even a marriage or a dissolution of marriage, right? It doesn't matter what area you're in. So they're important to every area of law, and that's professionally. But kind of for me, the third reason is separately is essential in our personal lives. Like the number of contracts we agree to as we go through a day, it's insane if you think about all the terms and conditions that we agree to. And so I don't know, it's relevant to everything we do every day, professionally and personally. And I tell the students about how they really think about it. Every relationship in our life is governed by some sort of contract. And there are terms to every relationship. There are expectations on how the party should act. A lot of times we get upset because that other person's not fulfilling the terms of the contract. So I don't know. But yes, so I am a little bit passionate about contracts and the structure they can provide in our lives.
absolutely. Well, it sounds like you have enough enthusiasm that I'm sure you generated among your students too. But before you were in the academy, what sorts of experiences did you have in the law as a first-gen lawyer that helped create this enthusiasm and appreciation for contracts?
So I feel, yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned to you, I did not know any lawyers before coming to law school, even. It was new, it was exciting. In some ways, it has its challenges. Even now, you know, you're still kind of learning. There's still things that you're like, how is it that at this point of my career, I still didn't know that, or that's new to me because I don't have the background. So there are definitely challenges, but there are great things about being a first gen in the sense of like, especially if you're curious and you want to check out things. I don't think I felt as much the pressure. You have to do this or you have to do that. And that's been very exciting because I've been able to kind of shift gears or go after things that I was interested in with a little bit less fear. Again, though, there were definitely challenges, and I have learned now after so many years. I talk to the students a lot about this in terms of what are some of the things I do. I mean, I'm very intentional about who's in my life and I reach out to them. I've learned it was very hard years ago. I think I felt like, no, I have to do this on my own. I shouldn't have known that. Like, how did I not know that? And it's taken a lot of years to kind of learn, no, like there's resources out there. That's what I tell a lot of the students. Like, I'm really intentional when I can't resolve something or I am stuck or I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, wait, do I need help resolving this? Who do I need to talk to? What kind of things do I need? And I start making a list, like what questions do I need answered? And so it's hard. I have to push myself to take risks and surround myself with people who will support me and help me take those risks because I didn't have that as much. But I think there's a lot of things. I also tell the students that I'm very clear about what my values are. Like I've written them down and I use them to guide me. And I go back to them when I'm making a difficult decision. So it is difficult. I sometimes have to say things out loud to remind myself that, like, wait, no, you wrote a 600 plus page book. You might know a little something about contracts.
A little something. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are moments like that, right? Like where you kind of start doubting yourself. I'm very open with students about that because I think they need to hear that it's not just them and that it's something you have to work on continuously so that you can develop further. But yeah, I am very fortunate. I think some of my wonderful colleagues and my wonderful friends who have been incredibly supportive at different points. And yeah, but I'm very intentional about it, about, like I said, who's in my life and who I go to for what. And yeah, you have to be, I think.
And how did that intentionality bring you into the academy?
So I was a teacher before I went to law school. So I should have probably known that I was going to end up teaching at some point, but I don't think I did at first. I enjoy working with people. I think a lot of what I like about teaching is the other side that a lot of people don't talk about is that you're constantly learning and you're constantly, for someone like me, I'm very curious. I will ask you 20,000 questions. I want to understand things. I love learning new things and new areas of law. I love getting together with colleagues and talking about all kinds of issues and learning about developments in different areas. And I think the academy really provides that, right? If you're someone like this, it gives you the space to explore, constantly be challenged, right? The students are constantly asking questions. You're like, that's a really good question. I may have to think about that for a moment, or I may have to look into that. What do you think about it? And I love that.
Well, I love that too when you say to them, well, what do you think? Buys you a little time.
It's long enough.
Yeah, that's right. So let's get to the 600 plus page book. So this is the third edition of Drafting Contracts, How and Why Lawyers Do What They Do, and the first edition that you're involved with. So tell us a little bit about how you became involved in the third edition.
So, first of all, I have to say I felt truly fortunate to be considered to jump on this third edition. It was an honor to get the chance to work on it and be part of the foundation that Tina Stark had already built, her incredible teaching and learning legacy. That was an incredible honor. I had also used the second edition in many courses, so it was exciting to have the opportunity to support it, move it forward, kind of take a look at it and see, okay, what do we do next? But I will admit that it's probably been one of the hardest, most intense challenges that I've had in my career. And it's funny because I'm telling you, at this point, I've been working on all kinds of complicated matters for more than 20 years, from transactional to litigation. I've done all kinds of things, very serious matters, but I felt the pressure for sure to make sure this third edition was as great as possible. I mean, it's being used by so many schools across the country, so many faculty members. It's the main book for teaching these issues. So I definitely felt that pressure, and I knew it would require tremendous project management skills. We were on a really tight timeline, so I definitely knew it was going to be a challenge from the beginning, but I also knew that it would have a great impact. When I think about what to get involved in, probably what's one of the things that I was talking about, kind of going back to my value, and I did go back and look at my list of my values. One of mine is try and make the greatest change possible and trying to have an impact, right, on the world. Like if I was going to spend time writing something, I want to make sure everything I've taken the time to write has been used in some way or has had an impact of some kind. We have finite time and resources ourselves as people. So that's really important to me as a person. And I felt really fortunate getting the chance to take on this third edition.
So I know this third edition was post-COVID, and that one of the things new to the third edition is thinking about contract drafting in the context of that sort of global catastrophic event. So if you can share a little bit about that and also about how your third edition addresses our new challenges in contract drafting with AI and technology?
So, yes, and you're right. Like the previous edition, the second edition, was published in 2014. So it had been 10 years. And since then, we've encountered a pandemic, the development of generative AI to an impressive level, right? The rollout of the next gen bar, among other things. Just so many things that have developed since then. So many things have changed and are still changing or are being determined, really. Because one of the challenges was not just, okay, yeah, we can finish this and send this to publication. No, to production and got it's like, wait, no, things are constantly changing. How are we going to manage that? So yes, so many things have changed within contracts law or other areas relating to contracts, such as professional responsibility, for example. So my goals with this new edition were to expand on a number of these areas, these new developments, AI technology, force majeure, so many things that have happened since. And that was one of the primary goals. Apart from organizing the ideas in an easier way to understand, explaining things in a way so that anyone can pick up the book and understand them, that's really important to me. As someone who English, was their second language, I really have an emphasis on writing things clear so anyone can understand them, no matter who they are, whether they're a lawyer or not, right? Anyone who works with contracts every day can hopefully use this book, not just lawyers. But yeah, to your point of, I really had to take, if we look at the generative AI, so one of the things that we decided to do, Aspen originally thought, okay, we're going to have an AI and technology chapter, and we talked about it, and that would actually be part of the book physically. And I was like, I don't, like, the moment we send this into production, literally the next day, it's going to be outdated.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So, and I'm sure you've heard so many people kind of face the same challenge. So I quickly realized that we couldn't do it like that. We talked about it. And so we decided to make it an online chapter so that we can update it, right? And I'm going to update it again now in the next couple of months with the new information. And it's great because I even give it to my students because they read it and I ask them for feedback. And I've actually have things that I need to incorporate from students as well as other people around the country and everything, things that they'd like to hear, which is kind of interesting because you can make them apart. And I told them, I said, I'll give you credit. I'll make sure, I'm not trying to take anyone's credit.
I love that, getting student feedback and relying on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, they know a lot. So I want to be as updated as possible. So we putting a line and actualizing as we go. So that was a big area that's constantly, and we can talk more about Gen AI because I use it too. So I still practice quite a bit. I think I was telling you, I mean, this is an interesting time. It's definitely been a busy time the last few months. So, and I can talk to you more about that. So that was the Gen AI stuff, the professional responsibility, completely rewrote that chapter because there were a lot of things that I needed to make sure we touched on. Also, kind of the drafting process, like what an actual transaction looks like, right? I took the time to talk more about what we call endgame mechanisms, basically anything that could shift the relationship between the parties, right? Not just termination, but something happening that could alter that relationship and kind of what to do in terms of risk allocation. So I put in a lot more about that because it's kind of given everything that's happened. Same with like issues like qualifiers, like materiality, best efforts, which are used quite a bit in contract drafting and when looking at contracts. But yeah, so I did do quite a bit on that. And for example, like the force majeure, like when you were talking about the pandemic, and not just the pandemic, because after the pandemic came Ukraine and Russia, which also had an impact on contracts worldwide. And then since then, we've had changes in government contracts. We've had the tariffs affecting a lot of contracts worldwide. And fortunately, I'm still practicing involved in the world. So that's been extremely helpful. I find it extremely helpful for me in terms of being able to. So all of that and how it's shifting is really important. And yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'd love to know a little bit more about the AI and technology and drafting resources page. So someone who adopts this book or is using this book, what would they find on the research page to help them?
So it's a whole chapter that's basically titled Artificial Intelligence and Technology in Contract Drafting. And it's a chapter that goes through obviously a very short intro. And then first it provides some terms and background information that really focuses on these topics relating to contracts and writing contracts. Just basic terms of whether like the difference in AI, Gen AI, what does machine learning and deep learning, because a lot of people are coming to this, whether it's faculty members, whether it's some practitioners, not just students, right? I think a lot of people have felt like, thank you for kind of narrowing down and tell me kind of what I should learn, what I should know as a foundation when I'm teaching this and when I'm focusing on contracts. And not just faculty, like I said, even practitioners. I get a lot of reach outs even from practitioners, and that's wonderful. It's always, by the way, I definitely encourage anyone who's listening to this, please reach out to me. I would love to hear your thoughts, especially if you're working on these matters, and happy to talk to you more. But so first kind of going through that, and what does automation mean, and what does prompt engineering, what is it, what are smart contracts? So first that, right, and some background info, and then kind of I focus on two areas, automation and Gen AI. So none of these concepts are really new for anyone working on contracts, because contracts is not something that you start and write from scratch. Like for decades now, right? Like we copy and paste, students are always like, so what are the rules about like if I copy from somewhere? I'm like, oh yeah, it's a little bit different, right?
Yeah, different in contracts for sure.
Right. I mean, the whole practice is that like, a lot of times you're like, oh, let me go back to that transaction or that deal or that matter. Like we had a really good provision dealing with indemnities in issues like this. And then you kind of lift it and shift it. This has been a part of this way of thinking, at least. Us hoping we would reach this kind of level. I don't know. I've been hopeful for it. Maybe I'm ridiculous for it. So I focus on automation, which is, and then I use in this example, smart contracts, which really relate to blockchain. I won't get into it. They're automatically executed. So imagine like a ship basically reaches a particular point, geographic area. And so because they've reached like an amount is dispersed because they've reached at least one point, and it just happens automatically. You don't even have to worry about it. You don't have to contact it. Hey, we've reached this point.
No, just don't.
Yeah. So there's already been in the area of contracts, we've already had developments throughout the years. So we've had like the automation, the smart contracts, and I talk a little bit about it. And then I get into Gen AI and kind of give people an overview and then really focus on like the opportunities. Had to a lot of reach, but also a lot of thinking on my own because a lot of this is new. And so I really put together kind of basically, I did it in more of an also easy to read table format. So about how it increases efficiency, it handles a greater volume of work, provides consistent, better service to clients, or it can if we are able to establish it well, expands access to justice. So a lot of the like opportunities that we have with Gen AI, it can serve as a process to evaluate a contract, not just when drafting a contract. We can even use it to evaluate a contract, what it may be missing or where something may go wrong depending on the law of that particular jurisdiction. It can even predict contract outcomes. So there's a lot of ways we can use Gen AI. But then I also go through the challenges. Does the data set exist to be able to do everything that I just said in my AI? Right? Is the technology accessible and affordable to everyone? Right now, there's a race to that. We just saw in the news about OpenAI moving to a for-profit model, like possibly, and them kind of backing away from that. So there's a race at the moment, similar that like we've seen with the internet and going online, with the music platforms when they develop, when you think back the early 2000s. And we can look at some of these developments through time in the last decades. It is helpful in some ways to look at these things, especially when you're looking at issues like IP, privacy. Yes, there are different new challenges, but we've learned quite a bit and have had to adapt in the past. So is the technology accurate? Is there transparency? Like, do we understand how the platform works and what some of the biases may be, right? Are there biases? What are they? How do we account for them? How do we refine the algorithms and the processes? So all this, and like I mentioned, the IP and the privacy, and obviously the professional response. So that's the challenges. And then I talk a bit about the AI platforms, best practices, understanding how what you're using works is an important best practice.
This is great. I mean, what a tremendous resource to have this up-to-date online chapter advising about utilization of AI and technology in contract drafting. It sounds like an outstanding addition to the third edition. But Monica, when we were talking before we started recording, you indicated that you had to finish this book during some pretty tragic circumstances. Would you like to share a little bit about that and what you've learned going through that?
Yes, it's hard to talk about, but yes, because I told you I'd be open to. And just quickly though, closing the gin, I did want to mention that I also talk about some of the emerging issues going forward, and I give practitioners working with people under them and faculty members working with students ways they can implement Gen AI, use Gen AI, and teach others how to use it. So I did want to mention that because I think that's important so that they're not alone. And the idea is to create, I'm working now this summer are creating further resources because I know it's a huge lift for a lot of people. And it takes so much time. And sometimes you don't even know where to start, especially if you're just starting to kind of wrap your head around that. So I did want to make sure I say that so that if anyone listening, I can look forward to that. And I'm happy to share things with you. But yeah, I think I mentioned to you already that it's one of the hardest things I've done in my career. And particularly because, yeah, I think so. As I was nearing publication, right, as I was nearing finishing the book, I mean, even writing the book, and, I was involved in an incident that affected my personal life dramatically by telling you, I was telling Patty about it, that like my car was stolen and I was really hurt during the incident. I was truly fortunate to survive, truly fortunate. Every day is a gift. I feel very fortunate. I love what I do. I always said I'm intentional about everyone around me and everyone. And I think it's really important. But I had to navigate a lot of issues that resulted and still managed to complete this book in time. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea how. It was extremely difficult. And I was telling Patty I had to learn how to walk again, not knowing what was going to be possible. It's just so many difficult things. In some ways, I don't know. Maybe what I faced in that journey made a 600 plus page book seem not as difficult.
Not a big deal. Yeah. A piece of cake.
Maybe it put things in perspective. I am extremely thankful for my wonderful colleagues here at Northwestern and across the country, and my family and my friends, and my wonderful friends who so many supported me during that time. I truly, and I think it's important, especially right now, I never felt alone. And when I did, someone would call, someone was there. And that's not easy nowadays. You know what I mean? And I think everyone wants to be there for everyone, but it's hard, and it's hard to ask for help. It kind of goes back to the first gen thing that we were talking about. It's hard. It's hard to be vulnerable. I definitely had to be vulnerable. I had to dictate the last parts. I had to learn how to speak also in a way that my dictation, because that was frustrating when I had to fix things because I couldn't use one of my arms, and I had to learn how to use that arm as well. Maybe it gave me something different to focus on. But yeah, it definitely has provided a very different perspective on life and feeling very hopeful, very optimistic, and making sure that you're happy every day. I mean, I talk to the students as well. It's really important.
Well, I am so very sorry that that happened to you, but so grateful that you have recovered so well and that you did have support. Thank you for sharing that experience with us. But you prevailed, and the third edition of Drafting Contracts: How and Why Lawyers Do What They Do came out on February 27th. And congratulations. That's really exciting, and I think will be a wonderful addition to the field. Now, as you know, my guests are always asked the same final question, and that is, what are your predictions for the future of legal education in the coming decade? And I'd love to hear what you think.
Well, I don't know. Maybe this is like the ever optimist in me and the ever hopeful. To me, the future is really bright, Patty. I mean, believe it or not, I'm not worried. I know a lot of people are. I'm not saying there's a lot of work ahead of us, and it's going to be challenging. But this is a really exciting, important time for many reasons in law school, right? I mean, that's the understatement of the year. And change is scary. Change is really scary. Even if it's towards the change that you want, it's extremely scary. And it's extremely uncomfortable, But it's so hopeful and exciting. And I guess maybe I've always worked on trying to change things. Like that's always been one of my focus in my work. So I know how uncomfortable it can be. This is why many of us decide to come to law school. So, you know what? Like, if a few years ago you were like, I want to make the world a better place, well, here you go. Like, this,
There are plenty of opportunities.
careful what you ask for because you got it. So it's time to be part of making that change in law schools, as hard as it may be. We really have to be better at training our students in law school. There's a lot of changes coming with the next gen bar that are going to put that pressure a little bit stronger on us. We might have been talking about it for a while, and many of us are trying to do everything we can to be as practical as possible. We really don't have any excuses or time left now. All the developments and challenges we're seeing in practice from Gen AI, right? A lot of what we talked about the next gen bar, it's essential for us to do it now, so we can't put it off anymore. We have to make it more practical. You know, I try to do that even in my like lecture 1L classes and bring in the more practical aspects and not just focus on case after case and case law. So there's some challenges we face. We're going to have to make resources easier to use and adapt them to a more practical way of learning. Most of the books and other resources we use are not written with this framework in mind. So they are going to, we're already starting to see that quite a bit. And a lot of us are trying to do that as much as possible. We're going to have to collaborate a lot more going forward across disciplines and schools, bring together folks. I mean, for me, one of the things that I'm excited about, for example, is I'm in the process of creating a platform for us to work together, practitioners and faculty members at different schools, to share resources, to work together. So no one's reinventing the wheel. So we're supporting each other as much as possible. That's something I'm working on currently. And I'm really excited about kind of getting that up hopefully this summer. And we are going to have to look, I mean, you're a dean, so you know this better than I do, but creating incentives for people to change how they teach, creating and how do you do that in the structure we currently have?
Oof. If you figure it out, let me know.
I know. I feel for all of you. Like, I say that to my dean as well. There's no incentives right now, or in some schools, there's more than in others, or the incentives are a lot of times on other activities, and our time is finite, and you have to make decisions. But I'm excited. I think we are definitely having to make these changes and adapt, but I think we're going to have to work together, like I said. And I think it's okay to say, you know what, it's going to take us some time. Like, if you're intentional, you're working on it, it's okay. Like, I can't do anything overnight. It won't happen overnight. I don't know if that's how you feel about it, Patty. I don't know. I feel like I should be asking you.
You're right. I mean, it took us a long time to get to where we are in legal education. It's going to take a long time in some areas to turn the ship. But I think that we've made a lot of progress, and the next gen bar is forcing a little bit more hasty progress in some areas. So, but it sounds like your book also is very beneficial to preparation for the next gen bar. So I want to say again how excited I am about your third edition of Drafting Contracts, How and Why Lawyers Do What They Do. Your optimism and enthusiasm are infectious, and your students are lucky to have you. So I thank you, Monica Llorente, for spending some time with us today.
Thank you, Patty. It was such an honor to get a chance to talk to you today, and hopefully others listen to this and reach out. Please, like I said, feel free to reach out. I'd love to talk to you more about these issues and so much more. Yeah, I can't wait.
Okay, super. Well, if you've enjoyed this conversation, I hope you will listen to your favorite podcast channels and find other interviews with thought leaders in the legal academy.